This is NBC Nightly News. With David Brinkley, who's on vacation, John Chancellor in New York, and tonight's special segment, A Crisis of Confidence.
Good evening. President Carter put a price tag on his new energy conservation program today, $142 billion over the next 10 years to be paid for by a tax on oil company windfall profits, an unprecedented program. That was the word the president brought to audiences in Kansas City and Detroit to guarantee, in his words, that never again will our nation's independence be hostage to foreign oil. Judy Woodruff was with the president.
Barely 9 hours after he had complained about the isolation of Washington, the president escaped it. He flew halfway across the country to Kansas City, where he found a sympathetic audience at a national convention of county officials.
I've come to Kansas City to meet with you to do both, to discuss the energy problem and to get you to help me succeed. I want to know, will you help me succeed?
At times, the president sounded like a general leading his troops into battle. Fighting side by side, he said, we'll win the energy war. One enemy he identified was the oil industry, whose windfall profits he wants to tax to pay the huge costs of his energy program. He said if the oil companies don't help us meet our basic energy needs, I'll make them.
The oil companies must cooperate. We will bring the full force of the law to bear on those who profiteer from our national shortage or who try to cheat the American public.
Next stop, Detroit, and another friendly audience, the Communications Workers Union. Not everyone who heard the president today was impressed. One listener in Kansas City said the crisis of confidence the president is referring to is one he created himself. But even the president's critics say that he is demonstrating a new determination to show that he's not going to give up without a fight.
I've made some mistakes since I've been president. As I said last night, many of the people said, Mr. President, you're not out among the people enough. You don't listen to us enough. You've been so bogged down in managing the government that you haven't been leading our nation. Well, I listened to that, and I've learned my lesson.
It was a rare admission coming from an American president. Judy Woodruff, NBC News, Detroit.
The president told visitors last week that he was trying to get the American people to listen to him on energy, to get their attention. Well, he got it. The television audience for his speech last night is estimated at 65 million people. We'll have the details of Mr. Carter's plans after this.
Still busy.
Hey, why is my favorite lawyer so tense?
Sorry. The doctor says caffeine makes me nervous.
Lois, you should drink Sanka brand, a caffeinated coffee.
But I only like real coffee.
Sanka brand is real coffee and tastes it. Try it.
It is real coffee. Delicious.
Lois, you look so relaxed.
Glad you noticed. Open and shut case for Sanka brand.
Sanka brand, the coffee that lets you be your best.
If you'd like to put less in here, put this in here. This is the Pennzoil that saves gasoline. Pennzoil PZL. Special friction reducers in Pennzoil PZL help your car go farther on a gallon of gas. And it's an extended life oil, so you can go farther between oil changes too. Pennzoil PZL, the Pennzoil that saves gasoline and oil changes. And you know what? That can save you money.
The president's plan to lessen dependence on foreign oil is an ambitious program involving nuclear energy, mass transit, the creation of an energy conservation board, an energy security corporation to develop alternate sources of energy, and at the center, a resolve to put a halt to the growing dependence on foreign oil. Roughly half of all the oil Americans use comes from overseas. Andrea Mitchell has the details.
In his speech last night, the president set a limit on oil imports.
Beginning this moment, this nation will never use more foreign oil than we did in 1977. Never.
What the president didn't say is that we imported more oil in 1977 than ever before or since. 8.5 million barrels a day, the same limit agreed to recently at the Tokyo summit. Today, the president limited this year's imports to 8.2 million barrels a day. We're importing only 8.1 million barrels now, partly because of the disruption in Iran. So under this quota, imports could actually increase this year. Enforcement of the quotas will depend on customs checks, not industry figures. The quotas are supposed to reassure foreign investors about our energy policy and the value of the dollar, get production started on alternative fuels, push utilities to switch to coal or natural gas instead of oil, encourage homeowners to conserve and convert from oil to natural gas.
Energy Secretary Schlesinger said the import quotas won't hurt this year, but could cause shortages over the next few years. He hopes that after that, conservation and new domestic production will make up for what we won't be getting from overseas. Schlesinger said it's ironic, but the recession will slow demand and make it easier to reach the president's target, which is to cut imports in half by 1990. Andrea Mitchell, NBC News, Washington.
The costs of all this will be staggering in dollars and in dreams. To be specific, Jimmy Carter's dream of a balanced budget in 1981. Irving R. Levine has looked at the costs.
In Kansas City, President Carter placed a price tag on his energy war.
Now I'm going to mention one of the biggest figures you ever heard.
The precise figure the president proposes is $142.2 billion, of which $88 billion is for a new energy security corporation to start synthetic fuel projects, $24 billion to help low-income Americans pay for fuel, $16.5 billion for mass transit and gas-efficient autos, $13.7 billion for solar energy and for switching utilities from oil to coal. The windfall profits tax on the oil companies, along with $5 billion from the sale to individuals of a kind of energy war bond, is supposed to pay for all of this, but it may not. If the windfall profits tax doesn't produce enough, money might be needed from the federal budget. Today, the president spoke of a balanced budget in the future, an apparent departure from commitments to balance the budget in 1981. And money taken from the budget for energy reduces chances for a tax cut. President Carter said again today that inflation remains the nation's #1 economic problem. But more expensive energy will make inflation worse. So the war against inflation has come into conflict with the war against energy dependence. For now, at least, energy seems to have priority. Irving R. Levine, NBC News at the White House.
As Mr. Carter sees it, the politics of all this involves getting the people excited about his program. That, he believes, will get the Congress to move. And today, Senator Henry Jackson, chairman of the Energy Committee, said he thought the Senate would pass the program before the August recess. Tom Pettit has been looking at the politics.
Almost every presidential proposal on energy already is in the legislative process, somewhere, in a House or Senate committee. Everything the president wants is in there somewhere, except for mass transit megabucks and possibly forced conversion of utilities to fuels other than oil. The House has approved a windfall profits tax and sent it over to the Senate Finance Committee. Senate approval of some windfall profits tax is considered probable.
I think there'd be a revolt in this country if the windfall profits tax didn't pass in a fairly stringent way.
The Senate can pass the president's program by August 3rd, and we will.
If Schlesinger doesn't go, it will hurt the president, in my opinion.
The real test of the administration will come whether they will support a temporary waiver of the Clean Air Act in order to be able to burn coal in key areas where they have the capability of switching immediately from oil to coal.
The environmental issue will be bigger than standby authority for gas rationing. So the old divisions still are here, but some new urgency. Enough that Congress will spend August 3rd to September 5th on vacation. Tom Pettit, NBC News at the Capitol.
Reaction to the president's speech of last night was positive in Western Europe and Japan, but among some financial experts and oil men, the reaction was less enthusiastic. Mike Jensen has that story.
Senator Tom Eagleton,
Charles Maxwell is a Wall Street analyst. His specialty, energy. Like lots of other businessmen, he watched President Carter's speeches last night and today, hoping for a bold new energy program. He didn't find it.
He's refusing to take the big knife out and go at the cancer.
Businessmen like Maxwell had wanted President Carter to decontrol gasoline prices and get the government out of the business of allocating gasoline and oil. He didn't. There are two good ways of judging how President Carter's new energy program is going over in financial circles. Internationally, you look at the price of gold. A rising price means a lack of confidence, and prices rose sharply in London today. In this country, you look at the stock market. Today, the stock market closed higher than it opened, but only slightly, and it had fallen most of last week in anticipation of the Carter speeches. A vote of confidence for his program just didn't show up on Wall Street today. And what praise there was mixed with criticism. Clifton Garvin of Exxon welcomed most of President Carter's actions, but not all of them.
I honestly do deplore the fact that he elected in this talk today again to attack the oil industry.
Garvin wasn't happy about the excess profits tax to finance the development of synthetic fuels. All in all, not a good day for President Carter in the business community. Mike Jensen, NBC News, New York.
Gas station owners in some states have been threatening to strike, and some have struck because, in their view, government price regulations are driving them out of business. Today, the Department of Energy simplified its pricing rules, setting a new national profit margin of about 15.5 cents a gallon. This will mean slightly higher prices in the South and Midwest, no change in the East, and slightly lower prices in the West.
Remember this, a Rhine wine by any other name is not the same. Next time you wonder what white wine to drink, think of Gallo Rhine.
Nick, I need help.
Sure.
What should I use to clean my bathroom?
Fantastic.
But that's my kitchen cleaner. What about my bath?
Look, as fast and easy as Fantastic cleans your kitchen, it'll clean your bath.
Nick's right. Fantastic cuts right through grease, dirt, and soap scum. My whole bathroom sparkles. Nick, Fantastic is super in the bathroom.
Fantastic. What it does for your kitchen, it'll do for your bath.
One of our most important dances was in celebration for the bountiful goodness of maize, what you call corn. Today, Mazola Margarine knows all about the goodness of corn. Mazola Margarine is made from corn oil goodness, so Mazola Margarine has no cholesterol, naturally. And Mazola tastes fresh and delicious, naturally. Remember Mazola Margarine. It gets goodness from maize.
The United States saw a new model Jimmy Carter last night on television, a much more vigorous speaker than he had been before. The voice was a bit louder, the pacing a bit faster. There were more gestures and an occasional balled fist as the president talked about what he sees as a crisis of the American spirit. In his words, a crisis that strikes at the very heart, soul, and spirit of our will. Our special segment this evening deals with what the president calls the crisis of confidence. He sees the energy problem as only one aspect of this crisis. Other parts of it are a dangerous loss of confidence in American institutions, leaders, and in the future. Some of our reporters were in Mr. Carter's audience last night, and here are their reports.
A working-class neighborhood in Baltimore on a hot summer Sunday evening. Tough, solid people who live from one payday to the next. Last night, some of them gathered here to watch the president's speech.
Good evening. This is a special night for me.
Most of the customers at Frank and Marge's Tavern listened carefully to what the president had to say. Some approved, others were skeptical. Some obviously already had their minds made up.
I still think he's a peanut farmer, and he don't know how to run this country, believe it.
I don't think he said anything. Personally, I think you can't give a boy a man's job
Another thing is he better get some people in leadership behind him.
I think the president's trying the best he can with the people he's got working for him.
I feel he's trying to do a job now. And if the Congress and the Senate get behind him and the American people get behind him, I feel that he will do the job probably, and perhaps he will be elected the next time.
He's trying to convince the American people to trust him, and these people just don't want to hear what he's having to say.
I think there was enough people that just distrust him so much and distrust the government so much that I'm not sure many people are going to believe what he said anywhere along the line.
Douglas Kiker, NBC News, Baltimore.
Here in northern Illinois, grain farmers worry about the high cost of diesel fuel, inflation, and the way the government is run. Most of the farmers and their wives who met at John Davidson's house to watch the president's message had voted for Carter, but they've been disappointed in him, and the speech did little to change their minds.
I think he is a little bit lax in government. I don't think he has the ability and the power that we need in a president in this country. I don't think his programs are being carried out the way they should be.
He's doing as good as he can, I think, but he hasn't had enough people behind him to help him.
Do you feel that President Carter has been a good leader?
No, I don't. I think he tries, but there's just something he's lacking, and I don't think he just gets the people to go along with what he wants. I can't put my finger on it, but there's just something he doesn't have.
Anything the government gets into, they just ruin, and I think that's more the problem of confidence.
I have confidence in the people if we have less government, but I think he was speaking of more government.
The farmers and their wives say they're willing to make whatever sacrifices the president asks if it will help the country get out of the energy crisis. Norma Quarles, NBC News, Minooka, Illinois.
When we enter the moral equivalent of war...
Most of the senior citizens watching the president's speech at the Williams Memorial Residence in Manhattan were impressed. 88-year-old Jetta Merkel called it inspiring.
He spoke more forcefully tonight than I have ever heard him.
The people who live in this apartment complex, like 74-year-old Myrtle Janes, are financially better off than most Americans their age, able to afford the average cost of room and board, about $500 a month. They're grateful for their good fortune, but they said they've known struggles in the past. For Emil Nelson, a Salvation Army chaplain, the president's message recalled those struggles.
In World War II, carpools and gas ration stamps, and none of us were the worse for it. We were able to manage.
The speech reminded many people here, 82-year-old Ruth Eichenberger included, of Franklin Roosevelt's wartime call for sacrifice.
Why can't we make sacrifices when it isn't wartime? Why do we have to always have full tanks of gas? I walk. Thank God I'm still able to.
With a show of hands, the majority of the people watching the president here supported his message. But many said their day is past, that it's now up to the country's youth to carry out that message. Diane Wildman, NBC News, New York.
What's the matter, Harry? Old chopper's coming loose, huh? Oh, boy.
When you wear dentures, there's nothing funny about loose spots.
The answer? Today's Fix-A-Dent. Fix-A-Dent helps fix loose spots, fills those tiny gaps between dentures and gums with ingredients that give added dimension to holding.
Harry!
Uh-oh, look who's coming.
He's no big problem now. Neither are my loose spots.
Hi! Today's Fix-A-Dent helps fix loose spots.
Something wrong, Mrs. Phelps?
Off day, I guess.
Constipation?
And my laxative just...
Did you think of X-Lax? Give me your hand.
Well, that's not the X-Lax I know.
That's the X-Lax pill. We call it the Overnight Wonder because used as directed, X-Lax pills safely, surely stimulate your system's own natural rhythm.
So in the morning...
You're back on the bright side. X-Lax makes sure. It's the Overnight Wonder.
One little pill.
One little X-Lax pill.
Fact. Friction grinds down the moving parts of your car's engine. Fact. The black oil Arco Graphite reduces friction better than any other leading motor oil. That's why it reduces engine wear better than any other leading motor oil. How? Arco Graphite has two lubricants. Premium motor oil plus anti-friction graphite that clings to engine parts so they run smoother, easier, yet is competitively priced with other leading motor oils. Arco Graphite. It's a fact, not friction.
Labor news, a strike against Westinghouse Electric. Members of 3 unions walked off their jobs at 45 plants at midnight, about 38,000 workers in all. And the United Auto Workers Union, 781,000 members, began the process today of negotiating a new contract with the big 3 automakers. And the action began at General Motors. Jim Cummins reports from Detroit.
Solidarity forever.
Several thousand auto workers, active and retired, demonstrated outside the General Motors headquarters building as contract negotiations between the UAW and GM were about to begin inside. The demonstrators were calling for a 4-day work week, cost of living raises in pension benefits, and a 20% pay raise, much higher than President Carter's 7% voluntary wage guideline.
Let's tell them what we think of this guideline. 20% now! 20% now!
These people are not in a mood to make sacrifices for Mr. Carter or anyone else.
Well, I've been making a sacrifice. I'm paying almost $1 a gallon for gas now.
I see the oil companies and General Motors, of course, making record profits. I don't see them making any sacrifices.
UAW President Douglas Fraser joined the demonstration. He has faith in the workers he represents.
What they've said is if we're going to sacrifice, we have to have an equality of sacrifice, where every segment of our society sacrifices equally.
These negotiations for 780,000 auto workers will be the biggest test of President Carter's program to control inflation. Jim Cummins, NBC News, Detroit.
Cardinal James Francis McIntyre died today at 93 years of age. He'd been the Roman Catholic Archbishop of Los Angeles from 1948 to 1970. In New York City, the Roman Catholic Archdiocese refused a funeral mass for the murdered mobster Carmine Galante, and he was buried today in a simple 7-minute ceremony with a priest in attendance. And in Salt Lake City today, an old B-57 bomber fell from the sky and crashed into a building. Very scary, but no one killed. Larry Warren of station KUTV reports.
I was screaming and I couldn't get it open.
The pilot radioed shortly before the crash. He said he was losing altitude. He and his co-pilot ejected and floated safely to the ground, uninjured. Their plane spiraled into the warehouses, its right engine on fire. 3 people were in these buildings, but somehow they all got out alive and unhurt. A few hundred yards to the west, the jet would have hit an empty field. But a few hundred yards to the east, and it could have hit manufacturing plants housing hundreds of workers. The plane itself disintegrated. Ironically, this was to have been its last flight anyway. It was on its way to the Arizona desert to be put in mothballs as obsolete. Larry Warren for NBC News in Salt Lake City.
There are reports from Nicaragua tonight that President Somoza will resign and leave the country, possibly within hours. Also, aides were seen carrying suitcases and cages containing pet parrots from Somoza's bunker.
Introducing things denture wearers hate about denture adhesives.
I hate the grit.
I hate the taste.
I hate the goo.
Introducing one thing you're gonna love, new liquid Dentrol. Dentrol, a remarkable new liquid adhesive, helps hold dentures up to 6 hours without all the gummy, gooey, gritty mess you hate.
It feels smooth.
Hey, nice taste.
I love it.
New liquid Dentrol. Finally, an adhesive a denture wearer can love.
Seems like every day brings news about the gas situation. Bad news. For a change, here's a little good news. STP gas treatment. STP gas treatment helps keep your carburetor and intake valves clean. This helps keep your engine running like it ought to. That's important, now more than ever. For the bad news, get some good news. STP gas treatment. It really helps.
How do you spell relief?
When I get acid indigestion, I spell relief R-O-L-A-I-D-S.
Rolaids spells relief. Clinical tests prove with Rolaids you get relief Tums can't beat. That's right, relief Tums can't beat. In fact, relief no other leading antacid can beat. How do you spell relief?
For heartburn, I know. R-O-L-A-I-D-S.
Relief no other leading antacid can beat.
And finally this evening, living with it. Living with the energy crisis, which means for many people driving less and perspiring more. Today was the day when the federal regulation on temperature in public buildings went into effect, 78 degrees. 2 reports now on living with it.
On a hazy, hot, humid day in New York City, getting into an air-conditioned building was something to look forward to. Buildings like the World Trade Center with sophisticated climate control systems designed to maintain temperatures at about 74 degrees. But President Carter wants thermostats in public buildings set at 78. Here, it will be difficult and costly to change the systems.
As the population load changes, as the sun load on the building changes, as the temperature during the day changes, it's going to be a monumental task.
The new temperature regulation comes at a time when department stores are showing their fall and winter clothes. But the high temperature makes it hard to get people in the mood.
It's too hot in here. Must be 80 degrees.
The regional director of the Department of Energy says enforcing the regulation is primarily up to the citizens.
Yes, I think there are a lot of patriotic people out there, and if they see in an establishment that they're not living up to the temperature settings, they're going to blow the whistle.
Sardi's, New York's best-known theatrical restaurant, already is in compliance. It has installed fans and relaxed the dress code. Building owners have 30 days to bring the temperatures up to 78 degrees. If they don't and get caught, they could be fined from $5,000 to $10,000 a day. Al Johnson, NBC News, New York.
In Chicago during the rush hour this morning, there were fewer cars on the road than there were a year ago. Computer surveys say that is a trend in the last few months, reductions of from 5 to 25% below last summer.
The computer says Chicagoans drove the least when gasoline was the hardest to get and at the highest prices. Well, now President Carter says he wants Americans to drive less because it's patriotic. Not all Chicagoans go along with that.
I don't believe him, and I'm not going to give up my car. In fact, I'm going to buy a bigger car.
Why?
Why? Because I don't believe Carter.
This is supposedly a free country. If you can afford the price of gas or afford the kind of car that you want to drive, why not?
So much for the people who are still driving. But this was rush hour, 9 o'clock this morning, leading into downtown Chicago. The streets nearly empty. Quite a few people, 8% more, are finding it cheaper to ride mass transportation. They're leaving their cars behind, whether it's because of the high cost of gasoline or patriotism. Mike Jackson, NBC News, Chicago.
And that's it for this Monday. We'll be back tomorrow, and until then, good night for NBC News.
Tomorrow morning on Today, Energy Secretary James Schlesinger discusses the Carter Energy Program and his own plans.
I got this last-minute call to work the 7 a.m. flight, and wouldn't you know it, everything went wrong. I was even out of my antiperspirant. But am I worried? Because I use Mitchum Roll-On. Mitchum is so effective, I could even skip a day. I mean, you may never have to, but it's nice to know Mitchum's so effective.
Mitchum Roll-On. Used as directed, Mitchum is so effective, you could even skip a day.
You're where you want to be.